As some of you know, I served as a pastor in New York City for a handful of years, and as a result, I came to know some of the best spots to hang out and things to see when you're in the city. So just put this in your back pocket. The next time that you're in New York City, I have a recommendation for you. It's John's Pizzeria. It's located just a block off of Times Square, right across from the St. James Theater. And I encourage you to go there, not for the pizza, it's okay, it's fine, but for the architecture. Because when you go and sit in John's Pizzeria, you'll say to yourself, wow, this is giving me church vibes. And that's because it was a church. In the late 1800s, a building was built and a church was planted called Gospel Tabernacle. And Gospel Tabernacle was home to a vibrant movement of mission. It was the place where a denomination that exists to this day, the Christian Missionary Alliance, was formed. A very well-known preacher and author, A.W. Tozer, once called this church, the Gospel Tabernacle in Times Square, home. It was an incredible church of incredible impact, of incredible influence, filled with the Spirit and passionate for the gospel. Yet now, if you go to John's Pizzeria, what you'll see is that instead of a pulpit, they have a brick oven. And instead of people singing hymns, there are people taking photos and posting them on Instagram and sliding slices of pizza down their throats before they go see Hamilton. That's what you'll see. I share that with you because today we start a new teaching series called I Love My Church. And what we're going to do is talk about all the blessings and benefits that come with being part of a great local church. And we've got a great local church here at St. Mark. And I want you to walk out of these doors each and every week in this series, excited to be a part of this place, proud in all the right ways of this place, and ready to dive in and drink deep of all the blessings that come from being part of a local church. But I also want us to be reminded that while being part of a local church is a gift, it's a gift that must be protected. It's a gift that has to be well stewarded. And the people who form that church must be diligent lest they drift, lest the mission become diluted, lest their impact be diverted, and lest all kinds of things other than cherishing Jesus and moving his mission forward happen. Because before you know it, you can go from being a beautiful community of faith gathered in a particular place to being a beautiful building with an interesting story that just sells pizza. The writer of Hebrews was passionate in helping the early church remember that Jesus must be the center. That a church must stay focused on him and grounded in him and who he is, what he's done, and what he's promised. And the writer of Hebrews says that part of staying rooted in Jesus is staying connected to the church. You could go so far as to say that part of the message of Hebrews, certainly Hebrews chapter 12, is that it is difficult, if not impossible, to be deeply rooted in Jesus and not be, let me phrase this the right way. It is difficult, if not impossible, to be deeply rooted in Jesus, yet disconnected from his church. In order to be deeply rooted in Jesus, we must be deeply connected, intimately connected to his people. Let's look again at some of what he says in Hebrews chapter 10. He says, let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering. Let us hold tight to the message of who Jesus is and what he's done. For he, Jesus, who promised, is faithful. And toward that goal of holding tight to Jesus, let us consider how to stir one another up to love and good works. The word that here is translated stir up one another could literally be translated as agitate or provoke each other. How do we get each other, kind of shake each other by the shoulders and get each other focused on loving each other well and being about good works? Not neglecting to meet together, just like we're doing this morning, as is the habit of some. Oh, he's calling somebody out. But encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day, capital D, drawing near. More about that in just a moment. What the writer of Hebrews is saying is, let us lean in to life together as a church. You need it, and the world needs it. You need it because this is how we stay rooted in Jesus. This is how we stay connected to Jesus. And in this series, each week, I want to highlight a different aspect of church life and what it means to love it, lean into it, and drink deeply of it. And today what I want to do is look at verse 24 in the section that we just read, where it says that we are to be a place that provokes each other to love and good works. I love the church in action. The church is meant to be a place of action, a headquarters, a hub of sacrificial love and good works. A place where we stir up one another toward love and good works. Now, quick reminder that good works matter. We are part of the Lutheran tradition, a Reformation faith, and we have an interesting, if not complicated, relationship with that phrase, good works. We go to great lengths to help everyone know and remember that we are saved, we are made right with God by grace through faith alone, apart from works. That it is solely about the work of Jesus, having a relationship with him and being dependent upon him as the source of your forgiveness and the one who marks you as a member of the Father's family, that our future is secure in him and him alone, and our place in the Father's family is by grace through faith in him alone. We are made the church. We are saved by grace, not by good works. We are not saved by good works, but the part we tend to de-emphasize or just, conveniently forget in some of our circles is that while we are not saved by works, we are saved what? For them. We are saved for good works. There are good works that the Lord has set aside for his people to do. Being a good person doesn't get you into God's family. It doesn't keep you in God's family. The only way into God's family is by grace through faith in Jesus, dependent upon him who makes us right and marks us as his own. Which is really good news for all of us, but especially for those who are here today, and maybe you don't yet consider yourself a follower of Jesus. And as we talk about what it means to be a part of a local church that's spurred on to love and good works, that you think, well, that's probably not for me. I think love and good works are good things, but I'm maybe not the most loving and certainly not the best behaved person in the world, so maybe this isn't the place or the people for me. And if that's what you're thinking, then I've got good news for you. You are not alone. None of us is very good. This is not a social club for saints. This is a hospital for sinners. And the only requirement for being here is knowing that you've got nothing good to offer. Knowing that you are sick with sin like everybody else, and that apart from the good doctor Jesus, you are stuck. And that you need his help. That's the only requirement to belong, is to know that you've got empty hands and a deep need for Jesus. We are brought into this place by grace through faith alone. We're not saved by good works, but being saved and being brought in, we are then called to pursue them as a church, as a community of faith. Now, when you think about the life of love and the good works that we're called to live, you could think of them as existing in three categories. And these three categories are my own, but I think they happen to be correct. The three categories are this: mercy, justice, and beauty. The good works of God's people are acts of mercy, the pursuit of justice, and the display of beauty. We are called to spur each other on to acts of mercy. And when we talk about mercy, we talk about relieving the pain of people around us, the pain that's caused by living in a broken, sinful world. Here at St. Mark, that looks like the beds that we build and give away to kids that don't have a place to sleep. It looks like Operation Joy and the presents that we give to our neighbors with no questions asked. It looks like the meals that we make for the women who are in shelter at Turning Point on Saturday mornings. It looks like the hospitality that we try to show on Sunday mornings so that this is a safe, warm, and welcoming place to people who are tossed back and forth by a terrible world. That's what it means to show mercy. The pursuit of justice, and I mean that not in a political sense, but truly in the biblical sense, is about righting the wrongs that exist because of a sinful world. It looks like us providing health care and education opportunities for our brothers and sisters in Kenya who live under a system that robs them of upward mobility. It looks like providing support for a local pregnancy help center so that we can fight for the right to life for the youngest and the weakest among us. That's what it looks like for us to pursue justice. And the display of beauty is about displaying the greatness of God, often just by discovering the glories of creation. The church, the capital C church throughout history, has been the greatest champion of arts and education. The church started the university system so that we could discover just how great and glorious God is by knowing as much as we can about the world that he's made. It's why our cathedrals are filled with color and chorus. It's about displaying the greatness and the glory of God. It's why when we planted this church 77 years ago, we didn't just plant a church, we also started a mission and a ministry. We started a school. We started a school because we wanted kids and their families to know the greatness of our God through academic excellence. It's why we value excellence and creativity in music. It's why we try to take care of and invest in the properties that we've been given as a community of faith. It's about displaying the greatness and the glory of God. And we exist as a community to spur one another on in our scattered lives, in our individual vocations, but also in our gathered life together corporately as a church towards those three things, toward mercy, towards justice, and towards beauty. And when we do that, when we encourage each other to be about those three things in our scattered lives and in our collective life at St. Mark, incredible things happen. The first is this. When we are in action in mercy, justice, and beauty, we offer the world a very compelling witness. We offer a compelling witness to an unbelieving but watching world. I mentioned Operation Joy. As part of Operation Joy, we not only provide gifts for 130 kids, but we also provide an entire Christmas for multiple families. During Operation Joy, one of the families, a mom and her young son, came to the church to pick up the gifts that you had provided for them. And in loading up her car with gift after gift after gift, you could tell that she was overwhelmed. She was taken aback by the generosity because we ask for nothing, we ask no questions, we just give. It is offensively and disarmingly free. And you could tell as she's receiving these gifts for herself and for her son that she is moved. And as she's moved, she says, I just can't believe this. And then a moment goes by and she says to our team who was loading her car full of gifts, she says, I think we need to be baptized. And do you know why that's happening? It's happening because a person who doesn't believe, who has no connection to our church, is seeing a church show her mercy, show her compassion, to meet a need, to ease a pain with no questions asked. It's totally free. And it makes her go, why? Why would you do this? Whatever leads someone to love me like this, I need to know what that is, and maybe I need that in my life. It offers a compelling witness. Or I think back in history, in 400 AD, in this Roman province called Caesarea, there was a plague and a famine. And the combination of the plague and the famine caused people to exit Caesarea in droves. The only people who stayed around in this Roman province were the very, very sick and the dying. And also one group, the Christians. The Christians stayed in Caesarea while there was a famine and a plague, and they cared for the sick and the dying. And the rest of the world watched. And a historian, Eusebius, he takes note of this, and he says this was the end result. He said, their deeds, the deeds of the Christians who stayed behind to care for those who were suffering under the famine and the plague. It says, their deeds were on everyone's lips, and they glorified the God of the Christians. The mercy work in the early church, we're told by historians, played a major role in eventually the entire Roman Empire becoming Christian. But then consider this from Acts chapter 2. In the earliest moments of the Christian church, there's maybe several hundred followers of Jesus at this point. Jesus has ascended. The gospel is now being preached. The church is being formed. In the late stages of Acts chapter 2, there's probably several hundred people who would say that they are followers of Jesus. And an unbelieving world is watching this new community of faith form. And here's what happens. All who believed were together and had all things in common. There was some radical sharing going on. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. They were meeting each other's needs with mercy. And day by day, attending the temple together, they worshiped together, and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God, here's the key, and having favor with all the people outside of the church, watching what's going on and saying, wow, what is happening? And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved. The people of the early church are meeting each other's needs with mercy. And what's happening? The community is watching and the community is respecting. And then as a result, more people start believing. When we stir each other up to activity in mercy, justice, and beauty, a waiting world watches, and it is a witness. But there's more. When we stir each other up, a church in action, in mercy, justice, and beauty, it brings heaven to earth. The great hope of the Christian faith is not that one day you die and go to heaven. The great hope of the Christian faith is that one day Jesus returns and he makes heaven on earth. That he returns and he resurrects all who have died. And he recreates all that we see. And we live in a recreated, real, flesh and blood world for eternity. A world where there is no more tears, no more pain, no more need for acts of mercy. A world where every wrong is finally righted. No more need to pursue justice. And where the glory and the beauty of God is completely unveiled. No need for me to write a song or paint a painting, because the beauty of God and who he is on full display forever. That's the world that we are waiting for. In fact, in Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews reminds us that that's the end goal when in verse 25 he says this, encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. The day is coming. The day references the return of Jesus. Now, no one knows when that day will arrive. It could be tomorrow. What are your plans? It could be 10,000 years from now. But what I do know is that when the church is active in mercy, justice, and beauty, it brings a glimpse of that day into today. It brings a little bit of what God will do in full in the end down here in the present. It brings heaven to earth. There are people around you who in their own way are praying the prayer that Jesus taught the world to pray. Heavenly Father, thy kingdom come. Make yourself known to me. Make yourself known to me and ease my pain. Right this wrong. Remind me that you are really real. Heavenly Father, thy kingdom come. Make yourself known to me. And one day when Jesus returns, that prayer that your neighbor is praying will be answered in full. But it will be answered in the meantime, in part, tomorrow, today, through you, through me, as we pursue acts of love and sacrifice, mercy, compassion, justice, and beauty. It brings a bit of heaven to earth. Which brings me to the third thing that's true. That when we are a church in action, it gives the world the purpose that it is dying for. I don't know if you've noticed this, but you need to, that as our world becomes increasingly secular, divorced from the things of the divine and further separated from the transcendent reality that is God, that the ache we feel to know why we're here just continues to grow. And the pain that we feel to have a sense of purpose in our life and to know what it means to flourish and to live the life that we were clearly created to live, that there is a deep pain that grows because people are disconnected from the answer to that deep question, why am I here? We live in a world that is desperate to know why. Why am I here? What's the point and purpose of life? And I firmly believe that being disconnected from the divine and that ache of knowing why I'm here is tied to the rise in mental health issues that we see throughout our world, but in particular with young people. The mental health of Gen Z has bottomed out in recent years. You know this. You've heard all the research. You've seen the same studies that I have. But there was one thing that stood out to me a couple of years ago from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. They did a very large study on the mental health and well-being of young adults, and they said this, that over half of young adults report feeling a lack of meaning or purpose. Half of young adults report feeling a lack of meaning or purpose, and that lack of meaning and purpose is key to why there is a desperate sense of loneliness and an increased amount of mental health struggles. I firmly believe that. And while there's a myriad of things that go into that, I believe the church has some kind of answer and remedy to that because the church does offer the answer to that question of why are you here? And the answer to the question of why you're here for everybody is simply this. It is to be loved by Jesus and to love others in his name. And while that may seem simple or simplistic to you, that is the answer to the deep question. What you need is to know that you are seen and loved by God in Jesus Christ, and then to live a life of love in your unique way, in his name, to the people around you. That's why you are here. And when you're able to grasp that and hold on to that, it gives you a sense of peace, to know that you are here to love other people and that your worth and your identity are not at stake in how well you perform. That your worthiness and your identity are already secured in Jesus, and now all that's left to do is live and love the people around you in his name. And what we get to do, the people who know that that's the purpose, we get to live that out and then also offer it to others. And you have a unique part to play in that purpose we all share. Because as we heard from Paul earlier, each of us is uniquely gifted to give the love of God to this world as a part of the church. That each church is divinely orchestrated so that there are no unnecessary parts. There are no extra pieces. Each part belongs. Look again really quickly at what Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. He says, just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts. He's talking about us, but one body. Each person has a unique role within this place. You have gifts and strengths that nobody else has. And if you are not engaged in the life of trying to show mercy, pursue justice, and display beauty in your scattered life, but certainly in our gathered life, then the body of Christ is walking with a limp. We need what you have. We need what you have. We cannot be the people that we're called to be apart from you. And so the question each one of us is called to wrestle with is this: what is my part to play? What are my unique gifts? What is my unique contribution to this calling that we share? And my task as your pastor and the task of the other leaders of this church is to create and put in front of you as many opportunities to live out this calling as possible. And there have been times and seasons where we've not done as good a job of that as we could. I get it. But your task is to wrestle with that question and then put yourself forward. What is my part to play? And to be clear, there are lots of people here at St. Mark who are using their gifts and who are living out that purpose, who are playing their part, lots. But I also have to just be honest, there are many who are not. And sadly, quite often, life in the church, the local church, is a lot like going to an NFL football game. There are 22 people on the field who are giving their all and could use a rest. And there are thousands in the stands who, quite honestly, could use the exercise. What is my part to play? You have the great purpose. You know it. What is my part to play? And when we're wrestling with that, incredible things happen. We are to spur one another into activity, to be a place of love and good works. And the good works are this: works of mercy, works of justice, works of beauty in our scattered lives and our corporate lives. And when we're living that out, man, there is nothing better than the church. I love the church. Let me close with this. Earlier this week, I received a package. Wasn't expecting anything. Received a package, opened it up, and inside of this package were 3 stoles. Some of you who have a history in the Lutheran Church will remember what these are. These stoles are worn by pastors in more liturgical, traditional contexts. And the stole represents the office that a pastor holds, the office of the ministry. It represents the calling upon a pastor to represent Jesus to the people, and the calling that they all share to be Jesus to the world. So I open up this box, and inside of it are 3 stoles. And inside of it is also a note. And the note is from the children of Edwin Kuyper, who was the pastor who planted this church 77 years ago. He went door to door in the outskirts of Houston, known as Spring Branch. And he planted this church 77 years ago. It's from their children, Mark, Ann, Val, Tim, and Paul. And the note says this: our dad's personal mission statement was connecting people to Jesus. We are so glad that that mission and that heart continues in St. Mark. It is our privilege and our honor to give to St. Mark and to you these stoles, which belonged to our dad. Now, looking at those 3 stoles, I was, of course, moved, but I noticed that there were 3, and in a typical set, there are 4. There's usually a red one, a blue or purple one, and a green one, and also a white one. There was no white stole in the box. And then I looked at the postscript on this note, and it said, P.S., if you're wondering why there is no white stole, it's because my dad was buried in his white stole. He took that mission, that heart of connecting people to Jesus, with him into the grave and into eternity. And they're right, that heart of connecting people to Jesus continues in this place, in this church. It is alive and well, and that's why I love this church. But let me tell you, that heart, that mission, that ministry, it doesn't belong to any one pastor. It belongs to the people. It belongs to you. It is your task, your incredible responsibility to encourage one another, to stir each other up towards living that heart out, to being a church in action, a church of mercy, a church of justice, a church of beauty in your individual lives in Jesus' name, but also and especially in our corporate life together as Jesus' people. May we always be a place. May we always be a place where we show mercy, even at great cost to ourselves. May we always be a place where we we seek to right the wrongs in the world around us, may we always be a place where we display and tell of the beauty and the glory of God. By God's grace, may the activity and action of this church always say that we are a Jesus place. And may we never, not on our watch, be a pizza place. Amen.